It was raining that morning in London. The kind of soft, relentless drizzle that paints the palace gates in melancholy silver. Reporters were already there, huddled beneath umbrellas, cameras wrapped in plastic, murmuring that something was about to happen. They didn't know what, not yet. But inside Buckingham Palace, the tension was thick enough to choke on. For the first time in years, Prince Harry had walked back through those doors, not as a royal, not as a guest, but as a man stripped of everything he once took for granted. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. He had arrived quietly, in a dark sedan with tinted windows. No fanfare, no escort, just a single aide who opened the door, muttered something under his breath, and disappeared into the mist. The guards, stoic as ever, didn't make eye contact. The staff whispered his name in corridors, unsure whether to curtsy or to pretend they didn't see him at all. And yet, everyone felt it, that something monumental was unfolding behind those walls. Something that could either heal the royal family or destroy it forever. Because Prince Harry wasn't there to make amends for a tabloid headline or a Netflix misstep. He wasn't there to apologize for interviews or memoirs or the endless string of accusations. He was there for something deeper, something primal. He wanted to come home. Imagine that for a moment. A man who once declared he wanted to break free from the system, now begging to rejoin it. What kind of desperation drives someone back into the very cage they escaped from? What kind of heartbreak pushes a prince to his knees before his brother? That was the question echoing through the palace halls as word spread. Prince Harry was inside, asking to meet Prince William, alone. The last time they had been face to face, the air had been filled with anger, not rain. Harsh words, cold stares. Harry accusing William of betrayal. William accusing Harry of arrogance. Two brothers, once inseparable, now separated by oceans, egos, and a woman the press could never stop talking about. And now, years later, the rebel prince was back, not with triumph, but with trembling hands. So why now? Why this sudden act of surrender? Because everything had fallen apart. The deals that once made headlines, Netflix, Spotify, Archwell, they were crumbling like sandcastles in a storm. The documentaries had lost their spark. The books had stopped selling. Even the American tabloids, once eager to parade Harry and Meghan as symbols of independence, had turned. Their Hollywood circle, once golden, had quietly shut them out. Friends stopped calling. Invites stopped arriving. And Meghan? She was furious. Furious that her husband was even considering crawling back to the family she believed had ruined their lives. But desperation changes a man. It humbles him. And when Harry picked up the phone that night and dialed his brother's number, a number he hadn't called in nearly 3 years, he wasn't thinking about pride. He was thinking about peace. Inside the palace, the Queen's portrait watched silently from the wall as William took that call. No aides, no cameras, just two voices, broken by years of distance. William didn't speak much. His tone was calm, deliberate, but beneath it was something Harry couldn't quite read. It wasn't anger. It wasn't forgiveness either. It was something colder, disappointment. "Come home if you must," William finally said. "But understand this, you have to face what you destroyed first." 8 words. That was it. No greeting. No goodbye. Just a warning wrapped in duty. But to Harry, it sounded like hope. Like maybe, just maybe, there was still a path back. And so he took it. When his car pulled up to the palace the next morning, the media caught only a flash of red hair and a brief glimpse of a hand gripping the door handle too tightly. Then he vanished behind the gates. Inside, his footsteps echoed through the corridors he used to race down as a boy, past the portraits of his ancestors, past the staircase where he and William once hid from the press, past the office where his grandmother, the late Queen, once told him that duty was heavier than privilege. And somewhere in that vast, echoing silence, a door opened. William was waiting. No cameras, no aides. Just the two of them and the ghosts of everything they'd lost. Harry's eyes were red, not from the rain, but from sleepless nights. William looked tired too, though in a different way, the kind of fatigue that comes from years of carrying a nation's expectations on your shoulders. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Harry whispered something that stunned even himself. "I'm sorry," he said. The words trembled, heavy, real. "I've made a mess of everything, and I don't know how to fix it." William didn't respond right away. He studied his brother, searching for sincerity. For the first time, he saw not the defiant exile, but a man broken by his own rebellion. A man who had traded his birthright for a mirage and found himself wandering without purpose. But this wasn't a fairy tale reunion. This was the royal family, where emotion is weighed against duty and forgiveness is a luxury no one can afford. William knew the stakes. If he took Harry back, he risked reopening wounds the crown had fought hard to seal. Yet, if he didn't, he risked being the brother who abandoned blood when it mattered most. Outside, the rain grew heavier. Inside, history hung in the balance. Harry began to speak about the failures, the lies, the interviews, the broken trust. He confessed to the pain he'd caused their father, the embarrassment to the institution, the shame of watching everything crumble in the public eye. His voice cracked as he mentioned Meghan, how the love that once felt like liberation now felt like exile. How the California mansion, once a symbol of freedom, now felt like a gilded cage. Then, without warning, he dropped to his knees. Not before the crown, not before a monarch, but before his brother. The man who once stood beside him at their mother's funeral. The man he had betrayed in front of the world. The man who now held his future in his hands. "I just want to come home," he said quietly. The room was silent except for the sound of rain against the window. William's jaw tightened. He turned away, his eyes fixed on the portrait of Diana that hung above the fireplace. For a moment, it was as if she were there, watching her sons repeat the same heartbreak she'd once endured. The tension broke when King Charles entered the room. His presence was calm but commanding, his expression unreadable. He had been briefed on Harry's visit, but hadn't expected to find his youngest son on his knees. The sight stunned him, memories of his own youth, his own mistakes, flickering across his face. "Get up, son," Charles said, though his voice betrayed emotion. Harry obeyed, wiping his eyes. But it was William who spoke next. "You can't just walk back in and pretend it never happened," William said. "The crown isn't a stage you exit and re-enter when the applause fades." Harry nodded. "I know. I thought I could find myself out there. But I lost everything that mattered." And that was the truth. For all his interviews about freedom and authenticity, for all his speeches about independence, Harry had discovered that fame without family is emptiness in disguise. The world had given him attention, but taken his peace. Now he wanted what no title could buy, belonging. Charles, ever the pragmatist, listened quietly. He saw the sincerity, but also the chaos that would follow. The tabloids would devour this story. The public would demand answers. The family's reputation, already fragile, would be tested again. But beneath the politics and the optics, there was something raw, a father's instinct to protect his son, even when that son had wounded him deeply. When Harry finally stopped speaking, the silence returned. William stood still, hands clasped behind his back. His face gave nothing away. Then, he said something that would haunt the palace for weeks. "If you want to come back, you'll have to earn it. Titles mean nothing now. Show us you can serve without expecting the world to bow." It was both an invitation and a challenge. A chance for redemption, but only through humility. Harry understood. Meghan didn't. Because while Harry's plea came from a place of exhaustion, Meghan's reaction came from pride. To her, this wasn't redemption, it was humiliation. A step backward into a world that had rejected her. And if Harry accepted William's terms, it wouldn't just test his loyalty to the monarchy, it would test his marriage. But in that room, at that moment, none of that mattered yet. The focus was on two brothers, standing where they once played as children, surrounded by echoes of a mother's laughter and the weight of a nation's expectations. Harry had fallen. William had risen. And now, fate demanded one of them bend. Outside, the rain slowed. The reporters were still there, restless, whispering theories into microphones. None of them knew what was unfolding inside those walls. The tears, the silence, the unspoken words of forgiveness and resentment. To the world, it was just another royal headline waiting to happen. But to the brothers, it was everything. And when William finally turned to leave the room, Harry's voice stopped him. "Will you ever forgive me?" he asked. William paused at the door. The answer came not as comfort, but as a warning. "That depends," he said quietly, "on what you do next." Then he walked away. Harry stood there, staring at the empty doorway, unsure whether he'd just been given hope, or sentenced to exile forever. What he didn't know was that William's decision, already forming in his mind, would shake the monarchy to its core. And when the world learned what that decision was, it would be too late to turn back. Because forgiveness, in the royal family, always comes at a price. It started not with a scandal, but with silence. The kind that creeps into your home at night and refuses to leave. The kind that follows you from one empty room to another, whispering reminders of what you've lost. For Prince Harry, that silence had become unbearable. In Montecito, the California sun glared through the tall glass windows of the mansion he once called paradise. Birds chirped in the manicured garden. The air smelled of salt and orange blossoms. To anyone else, it was heaven. But to Harry, it was a prison dressed as luxury. Gone were the days of endless interviews and smiling photo ops. The calls from producers had stopped. The invitations from Hollywood friends had quietly disappeared. Even the paparazzi, once the bane of his existence, had grown bored. The house that once echoed with laughter and plans for a new, independent life now felt haunted by regret. Harry sat alone in the living room, staring at his phone. A cup of untouched tea grew cold beside him. He scrolled through old photos. Him and William as boys in uniform. Him and Meghan at their wedding. Him holding newborn Archie. Each image felt like a lifetime ago. Where did it all go wrong? He muttered. Outside, the Pacific glimmered in the distance, but it offered no comfort. The Netflix deal, once worth a fortune, had crumbled after disappointing viewership. The Spotify podcast was canceled, mocked publicly by executives. Even their charity, Archwell, was under scrutiny for lack of transparency. The dream had turned sour. And Meghan? She had grown restless. The woman who once inspired him to defy the world now seemed like a stranger. She busied herself with projects, meetings, public appearances, but never with him. Their conversations had become transactional. Their laughter, rehearsed. Their love, strained. One evening, as he watched her pace through the living room, phone pressed to her ear, he realized she wasn't fighting for him anymore. She was fighting for the image of who they once were. The Hollywood power couple. The symbol of rebellion. But Harry didn't want symbols. He wanted family. He thought about the last time he'd seen his brother. It had been at their father's coronation. The tension in the air had been so thick it could have cracked glass. William had nodded curtly, said a polite hello, and turned away. Harry had smiled for the cameras, but his stomach churned. He knew what everyone was thinking. The outcast. The traitor. The one who walked away. Now, in the quiet of his California exile, he felt that label sink deeper than ever. The press no longer treated him like a rebel prince. They treated him like a fallen one. Days turned into weeks, and the weight of failure pressed harder. He began to wake up earlier, sometimes before dawn, just to feel a purpose. He'd walk along the beach barefoot, the cool sand grounding him in ways his royal upbringing never had. Locals would recognize him, wave politely, sometimes stop to chat. He'd smile back, grateful for their warmth. But behind every conversation, he sensed the same curiosity, the unspoken question, what happened to you? One morning, he overheard two tourists whispering near a cafe. Isn't that Prince Harry? One said. The other chuckled. Used to be. Now he's just another celebrity who lost his shine. Harry walked faster, pretending not to hear. But the word stuck. Used to be. Back home, Meghan was on another call. She didn't notice his slumped shoulders or the tired look in his eyes. The house felt colder than ever. That night, Harry opened a bottle of scotch. It wasn't something he did often anymore, but the burn felt familiar, almost comforting. He sat on the balcony overlooking the dark ocean, letting the sound of the waves drown out the noise in his head. He remembered the last words his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, had said to him in private before her passing. Never let anger lead you, my boy. It blinds the heart faster than grief ever could. He hadn't understood it then. He did now. Anger had driven him to California. Anger had fueled every explosive interview, every defiant statement, every truth he thought the world needed to hear. And now, all it had brought him was loneliness. The next morning, he woke with a pounding headache and a mind full of ghosts. He scrolled through the news on his phone. The headlines were brutal. Harry and Meghan's empire crumbles. Royal outcasts facing financial strain. William rises while Harry falters. Each one felt like a knife, but one article stood out more than the rest. It was from a British columnist who had once supported him. Prince Harry's greatest tragedy isn't losing his title, it's losing himself. He stared at those words for a long time. Losing himself. He didn't tell Meghan about the article. She wouldn't have cared. She'd just tell him to ignore it, to control the narrative. But he didn't want to control anything anymore. He wanted truth, not spin. He wanted to be seen as more than a brand. That evening, he went into the study. Dust gathered on books and old photos. On the desk sat a framed picture of him and William from their military days, both in uniform, grinning under the African sun. Back then, they'd been inseparable. Back then, they'd made a promise to always have each other's backs. He picked up the photo, his fingers tracing the edges of their smiles. "I miss you, brother," he whispered. That was the moment something shifted. The silence didn't feel like punishment anymore. It felt like a challenge. A whisper saying, "Do something." But what could he do? He had burned bridges, insulted the institution, dragged his family into global controversy. The royal family didn't just distrust him, they pitied him. And yet, deep down, he believed there was still a chance. A small, fragile chance that he could fix it. For the next few days, he avoided Meghan's questions and focused on one thing, gathering the courage to reach out. Every time he picked up his phone, his hand trembled. What if William hung up? What if he didn't answer at all? What if the line had been changed, his number blocked forever? But regret is a stronger motivator than pride. Late one night, as Meghan slept upstairs, Harry finally dialed the number he had memorized years ago. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then, a click. William speaking. The voice was familiar, but distant, controlled. There was a long pause before Harry found the words. "It's me." Another silence. Then, the faint sound of William exhaling. "What do you want, Harry?" It wasn't cruel, just cold, formal. "I need to see you," Harry said. "Please. I need to talk." William didn't answer immediately. The quiet stretched, heavy and unbearable. Then, finally, "You can come, but you'll face what you destroyed first." The line went dead. Harry sat there in the dark, heart racing. "Face what you destroyed." The words echoed in his mind like a verdict. But he didn't sleep that night. He couldn't, because for the first time in years, there was a flicker of something he hadn't felt since leaving the royal family: hope. The next morning, he booked a flight. Alone. No entourage. No cameras. Meghan found the ticket hours later and demanded an explanation. "You can't go crawling back to them," she said, voice trembling between anger and fear. "You think they'll forgive you? They'll use you, humiliate you, and then toss you aside." Harry didn't argue. He just said quietly, "I need to see my brother." The look in her eyes said it all. This was the beginning of something neither of them could control. When he arrived in London, the city felt different. Colder. Quieter. The cab driver recognized him instantly, but said nothing. Just a respectful nod through the rearview mirror. As the palace came into view, Harry's chest tightened. The gates looked taller, the guards sterner. He remembered being a boy, racing bicycles with William across the courtyard. Now he walked alone. Every step echoed with memories. Every breath felt like confession. As the gates opened, one of the older guards murmured softly, almost to himself, "He's back." Inside, Harry's reflection caught in the glass doors, a face older than its years, eyes burdened by regret. He straightened his coat, drew in a breath, and stepped into the building he once called home. He didn't know if he was walking toward redemption or ruin, but he knew one thing for certain: running away hadn't saved him. Now, he had to face what he'd left behind. It was one of those gray London afternoons when the clouds sit heavy and low, pressing down like an unspoken warning. The kind of day where even the palace walls seemed to breathe slower, as if anticipating what's to come. Inside Kensington Palace, Prince William stood by the window, phone in hand, staring out across the manicured gardens that had once been his and Harry's childhood playground. He didn't expect the call. He didn't expect the voice on the other end to tremble. And he certainly didn't expect that his younger brother, the one who had publicly shamed the family, turned the monarchy into a Netflix storyline, and called him a cold heir, would be calling him now. When the phone first rang, William hesitated. He had been in a meeting with senior aides, discussing schedules for a charity initiative, when his private line buzzed. Only a handful of people had that number. His first thought was that it might be his father. But when he saw the name flash across the screen, Windsor, his breath caught. He hadn't seen that name light up in over 3 years. He excused himself, stepped into the hallway, and closed the door behind him. The silence in that moment was deafening. He could hear his own pulse in his ears. "William speaking," he said, his voice calm, professional, almost detached. The pause that followed was thick. "It's me," came the voice. The accent was the same. The tone wasn't. It was smaller, fragile, the voice of a man stripped of his confidence. For a second, William didn't know how to respond. Every emotion he had buried came rushing back. Anger, disappointment, grief. But beneath all of that was something quieter, something older, love. The kind that only a brother could understand. "What do you want, Harry?" he asked finally, keeping his tone steady. "I need to see you," Harry said. "Please. I need to talk." William looked out the window again. The rain had started, soft and steady. It reminded him of another rainy day, decades ago, when two young boys had walked behind their mother's coffin as the world watched. He remembered the sound of the horses' hooves, the sea of flowers, the cameras flashing. They'd promised each other that day that nothing would ever come between them. And yet, here they were. "Why now?" William asked quietly. "After everything you've said, after everything you've done." Harry didn't answer right away. He swallowed hard. "Because I've lost everything, and I don't know where else to go." There was a long silence. William could hear the emotion in his brother's voice, but he also heard years of chaos, of choices that couldn't be undone. He thought of the interviews, the book, the accusations, the ones that painted him and Kate as villains. He remembered watching their grandmother's funeral replay on American talk shows, dissected like a reality show episode. He clenched his jaw. "You think coming back fixes that?" "No," Harry said. "But maybe it's a start." William exhaled slowly. The tension in his chest was suffocating. He wanted to yell, to tell Harry how much pain he had caused, not just to the family, but to the institution that had been their life. Yet, he also knew that no amount of anger could undo what had already been done. "Come home if you must," he said finally. "But you'll have to face what you destroyed first." And then he ended the call. He stood there for a long time after, staring at the phone as though it might ring again. It didn't. Behind him, an aide stepped quietly into the room. "Everything all right, Your Royal Highness?" William nodded. "No," he said softly, "but it will have to be." That night, word began to spread through the palace. Staff whispered in corridors, speculating about what the meeting might mean. Was this a reconciliation? A trap? A PR move? No one knew for sure, but everyone sensed the storm coming. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Harry packed his bag in silence. He didn't tell Meghan the full story, only that he was going to London to talk. Her reaction was immediate. "You can't," she said sharply, following him through the hallway. "Do you have any idea what that will look like? After everything we've said, after everything they've done." Harry stopped her. "After everything I've done," he corrected. "This isn't about optics, Meg. It's about family." Her eyes flashed with anger and fear. "Family? The same family that cut us off, that leaked stories, that turned you into a villain." Harry looked away. Maybe they're not the only ones who did that. The silence that followed was brutal. Meghan stared at him as though she didn't recognize the man standing before her. "You're going to beg them, aren't you?" she said finally. "I'm going to talk," he replied. "That's all." But deep down, he knew it would be more than that. The next morning, he was gone. The flight to London was long, the hours heavy with memories. Every announcement over the intercom, every flicker of turbulence, reminded him of the last time he'd flown this route, to bury his grandmother. He had vowed never to return unless things changed. Now he was returning because everything had fallen apart. When he landed at Heathrow, the air was cold and gray, a stark contrast to the California warmth he'd left behind. A royal aide met him quietly, offering no smile, no small talk, just a nod. "His Royal Highness is expecting you tomorrow morning," the aide said. "William," Harry corrected softly. "Just William." The aide didn't reply. That night, Harry stayed at a discreet royal residence outside London. Alone. No Meghan. No cameras. Just him, his thoughts, and a journal he hadn't touched in months. He tried to write, but couldn't. Every word felt hollow. He ended up sketching instead, a habit from his military days, rough outlines of faces, memories, fragments of moments that once made him whole. He drew his brother's face last. The next morning, as dawn broke over the city, William sat in his office at Kensington Palace. He hadn't slept much. The call had left him restless. Memories of their mother haunted him again. How she used to tell them that no matter what, they'd always have each other. The world will change, but brothers don't, she had said. Now, looking at the headlines on his desk, William couldn't help but wonder if she'd been wrong. His private secretary entered with a hesitant look. "The Duke of Sussex has arrived, sir." William nodded. "Keep this off the books. No press, no photos." "Not yet." "Yes, sir." As the aide left, William looked at his reflection in the window. He didn't see a prince. He saw a man torn between duty and blood. A future king who couldn't afford to look weak, but also a brother who couldn't stop wondering if it was too late to fix what had been broken. When Harry's car pulled through the palace gates, William watched from the window. The guards straightened, their faces unreadable. Harry stepped out wearing a dark coat, shoulders squared but eyes uncertain. For a moment, William saw the boy he used to chase through these same courtyards. The boy who used to sneak extra pudding from the kitchen. Now he was just a man trying to come home. Down the hall, the air was still. No reporters, no aides, just two brothers about to face the reckoning everyone else had avoided. William waited by the fireplace, hands clasped behind his back. When the door opened, neither moved. They just stared. "Will?" Harry said finally. "Harry." The word hung in the air, too heavy to feel casual. "You look tired," Harry said softly. "So do you," William replied. The silence that followed was both painful and necessary. It was the silence of two men realizing how much they had lost and how far they had drifted. Harry broke first. "I don't expect forgiveness. I need to make things right." William studied him. "You said that before. In interviews. In books. You said you wanted peace while throwing grenades at the family." "I know," Harry said quickly. "I was angry. I thought I was protecting us. I was wrong." William's jaw tightened. "And now you want what?" "To come back." Harry hesitated. "I want to serve again. To do something that matters. To make amends." William turned away, staring at the portrait of Diana above the mantel. "Do you think she'd be proud of this?" he asked. Harry's voice cracked. "No, but I think she'd want us to fix it." The weight of her name shifted the air. For a moment, they weren't princes or rivals. They were just sons, trying to live up to a ghost's love. Then William turned back, eyes cold but glistening. "If you're serious, you'll prove it. Not with words, but with actions. The crown isn't a revolving door, Harry. You can't walk in and out when it suits you." Harry nodded slowly. "I understand." "Do you?" William pressed. "Because what's coming won't be easy. You'll face scrutiny, humiliation. You'll have to start from the bottom. No titles, no privileges." Harry met his gaze. "If that's what it takes, I'll do it." For a long time, neither spoke. The fire crackled softly in the background. Finally, William said, "Then be ready. Tomorrow we begin." Harry frowned. "Begin what?" William's expression didn't change. "Redemption." The word hung in the air like a command. Outside, the rain had stopped. But inside the palace, the storm had just begun. It wasn't the kind of sentence that echoes through history, not a declaration, not a royal decree. But those 8 words would soon be remembered as the ones that changed everything. You have to face what you destroyed first. For Prince Harry, they weren't just words. They were a verdict. A mirror held up to every mistake he had made, every bridge he had burned, every headline that turned him from beloved son to tabloid villain. And now, standing once again inside the walls of Kensington Palace, he could feel those words following him like ghosts. The next morning began quietly. Too quietly. London's rain had turned to mist, a soft gray fog rolling over the palace gardens. Inside, the halls were unnervingly still. The palace had always been alive with motion, footsteps of aides, whispers of schedules, distant laughter from staff. But not today. Today, it was as if the entire building was holding its breath. Harry arrived early, guided through a side entrance few remembered even existed. The air inside smelled faintly of polished wood and old history. He walked past portraits of ancestors he barely knew, their painted eyes seeming to watch him with judgmental silence. His chest tightened with every step. He was led to a sitting room, not too grand, not too small. There was no royal insignia on display, no pomp or ceremony. Just a simple space with 2 chairs and a fireplace. Waiting inside was William. He was standing by the window again, hands clasped behind his back. His reflection was faint in the glass, blending into the pale sky beyond. For a brief moment, Harry thought of their mother, how she used to stand like that, watching the rain. William didn't turn around immediately. "You came," he said. "I said I would," Harry replied. There was a pause, the kind that stretches just long enough to make the air feel heavy. "Do you remember what I said last night?" William asked, his tone flat, measured. Harry nodded. "I have to face what I destroyed." William turned then, his eyes sharp but tired. "Good. Because that's exactly what you're going to do." Harry shifted, uneasy. "What do you mean?" William gestured toward the chair. "Sit down." Harry obeyed, his palms damp. "I've arranged something," William began. "Over the next few days, you'll meet with several people. Not dignitaries or reporters. People you hurt directly, whether you meant to or not." Harry frowned. "What kind of people?" "The ones who paid the price for your choices," William said. "Former staff, security personnel, friends, even family." Harry's stomach tightened. "Family. Yes," William said quietly. "Including our father." Harry looked away. "He won't want to see me." William's jaw clenched. "That's for him to decide. But if you really want redemption, you start there. With the truth. No cameras. No PR. Just honesty." It was exactly what Harry had asked for, and yet it terrified him. Facing his brother was one thing. Facing his father was another. Facing the people whose careers, reputations, and peace of mind had crumbled because of his decisions? That was something else entirely. "Why are you doing this?" Harry asked finally. William didn't hesitate. "Because I have to know if you mean it this time. If you're coming back to serve or just to save yourself." Harry swallowed hard. "I mean it." William nodded once. "Then prove it." The meeting ended there. No handshake. No warmth. Just a thin layer of understanding. Fragile, but real. As Harry left the room, he passed by a corridor lined with photographs. One of them caught his eye, a picture of him and William from 2008, both in military uniform, grinning like boys. He remembered that day vividly. The camaraderie, the laughter, the promise that no matter what came, they'd face it together. That promise felt like another lifetime. Later that afternoon, William met privately with their father. King Charles sat in his study, papers spread before him, but his mind was elsewhere. He looked up when William entered. "He's here," William said simply. Charles sighed. "And what does he want this time?" "Redemption," William replied. "Though I'm not sure he knows what that really means yet." The king leaned back in his chair. His expression was unreadable, but there was pain in his eyes. "Your brother always had a good heart," he said softly. "But he's let his anger drive him too long." "Anger and influence." William nodded. "I'm giving him a chance to face the consequences." Quietly, privately, Charles studied his son for a long moment. "And you think he deserves that?" William's gaze didn't waver. "I think he deserves a chance to earn it. That's all." Charles exhaled slowly. "Very well. I'll see him. But not as king, as his father. For one last time." When William left, Charles sat alone for several minutes, staring out the window. The rain had started again, and he could almost hear the echo of Diana's voice, gentle, pleading. "Take care of them, Charles. No matter what." That night, Harry barely slept. He replayed the conversation with William over and over, analyzing every word, every pause. "Face what you destroyed." The phrase felt like both a punishment and a test. By morning, he was ready, or so he told himself. He was escorted through a different wing of the palace this time, one he hadn't entered since his grandmother's passing. The scent of old books and furniture polish lingered in the air. When he stepped into the king's private study, Charles was already there. No crown, no ceremonial attire, just a simple suit and tired eyes. For a moment, they said nothing. Harry bowed his head. "Father." "Sit," Charles said quietly. Harry did. Charles studied him for a moment. "I suppose this day was inevitable." "I didn't come to make excuses," Harry began. "I should hope not," Charles said sharply. "You've made quite enough of those already." The sting in his voice cut through Harry's composure. "I made mistakes," Harry said. "More than I can count. But I'm trying to make things right." Charles sighed. "Do you even know what right is anymore? You turned your pain into spectacle, your grievances into headlines. Do you know how it felt, watching the institution crumble piece by piece because of your words?" Harry lowered his gaze. "I thought I was telling my story. And in doing so," Charles replied, "you destroyed everyone else's." The room fell silent. The ticking of a clock filled the void between them. Finally, Charles's tone softened. You are my son, and that means I will always care for you. But caring for you doesn't mean I trust you. Harry's voice cracked. I don't expect you to. I just need a chance to earn it back. Charles looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then start by listening, not speaking. Serve, don't preach. Act, don't accuse. Harry nodded. I will. Charles leaned forward. And understand this. Your brother carries the weight of the crown now. If you betray that again, you will not just lose him. You'll lose me. Permanently. The words hung heavy in the air. Harry swallowed. Understood. Charles stood, signaling the end of the conversation. Your brother believes in redemption. For your sake, I hope he's right. When Harry left the study, the palace corridors felt colder than before. But beneath the chill was something else, clarity. For the first time, he understood what William had meant. Redemption wasn't about apologies. It was about accountability. That afternoon, as he walked alone through the palace gardens, he spotted William at a distance, speaking with aides. Their eyes met briefly. No words exchanged, but something unspoken passed between them, acknowledgement. For years, the two had lived in opposite worlds, divided by pride and pain. Now, the distance between them was still there, but smaller. Fragile. Reparable. Later that evening, Harry received a message from William. Just one line. Meet me tomorrow at 10. There's someone you need to see. Harry frowned. Who else could there be? He had already faced his father. The thought of who might come next sent a chill through him. The next day, he would find out. But when he opened that door the following morning, it wasn't a family member waiting for him. It was someone he hadn't seen since the day he left the United Kingdom. Someone whose betrayal, or loyalty, had changed everything. And when Harry realized who it was, he felt the ground shift beneath his feet. The car rolled slowly through the gates of Buckingham Palace, its tires crunching over the wet gravel as a pale dawn settled over London. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained bruised and heavy, as if the city itself knew what was coming. Inside the back seat, Prince Harry sat motionless, his fingers drumming against his knee, his breath shallow. The palace loomed ahead like a memory he wasn't sure he wanted to remember. It had been years since he'd last driven this road. Back then, it was under the watchful eye of the press, the roar of cameras, the chaos of departure. This time, there were no headlines, no cheering crowds, no scandal-fueled reporters. Just the quiet hum of an engine carrying him back to the life he once abandoned. As the vehicle stopped, a palisade opened the door. Harry stepped out into the cold morning air. The scent of rain mixed with the faint aroma of roses from the garden. The same garden where he used to play with William, chasing after their nanny's scolding voice, laughing until they fell into the grass. But that laughter was gone now, replaced by something heavier, the echo of everything he'd lost. Inside, the corridors stretched endlessly, lined with portraits of kings and queens who had ruled, loved, betrayed, and died under these gilded ceilings. Harry's shoes clicked against the marble floor, every step amplifying his anxiety. He had walked these halls as a prince, confident and proud. Now he walked them as a man stripped bare, no title, no rank, no certainty. A steward nodded as he passed, his expression neutral, but his eyes lingering just a moment too long. Word had already spread. The prodigal prince had returned. At the end of the hallway, he stopped. There, above the grand staircase, hung a portrait of his mother, Diana, radiant and alive in paint and memory. She seemed to look right at him, her smile soft, her eyes full of that same compassion he remembered from his childhood. He felt a lump rise in his throat. For a moment, it wasn't a palace he stood in. It was his mother's arms, her laughter, her belief that love could fix anything. Am I too late, Mum? He whispered. No one answered. The walls stayed silent. A palisade cleared his throat behind him. His Royal Highness will see you now. Harry followed him through a pair of ornate doors into a smaller, dimly lit room. It wasn't one of the grand reception halls. This was intimate, private, deliberate. The kind of room where truths were spoken without witnesses. And there, standing by the fireplace, was William. He was in a dark suit, no medals, no crown insignia. Just the simple formality of a man who carried the weight of the monarchy in his posture. His face was calm, composed, but his eyes betrayed something else, a storm held tightly in check. Harry stopped a few feet away. William. Harry. The words hung awkwardly, like strangers greeting each other at a funeral. For a few moments, neither moved. The crackle of the fire filled the silence between them. Then William gestured toward the chair opposite his. Sit. Harry obeyed, his knees weak. William studied him, taking in every detail, the faint lines around Harry's eyes, the exhaustion etched into his face, the way his hands fidgeted in his lap. You look older, William said finally. Harry managed a small, humorless smile. You too. Responsibility does that, William replied. So does regret, Harry said softly. A flicker of emotion crossed William's face, but he didn't bite. Instead, he leaned forward slightly. You've spoken to Father. Harry nodded. I have. And he told me I'd have to earn his trust back. William exhaled through his nose. He's right. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Are you? William's tone sharpened. Because this isn't about public image or royal titles anymore. This is about the damage you've done, not just to the family, but to the people who believed in you. Harry looked down. I know. No, I don't think you do, William said, his voice calm but edged. You left us to clean up the mess. Every leaked story, every half-truth, every angry soundbite. You said we were trapped, that the monarchy was toxic. Do you have any idea what that did? Harry's eyes glistened. I was angry. I thought I was protecting Meghan. I thought I was protecting my family. And instead, William said quietly, you burned your bridges and called it freedom. Harry didn't argue. He couldn't. Because deep down, he knew it was true. For a long while, they said nothing. The fire crackled. Rain tapped softly against the window. Somewhere in the distance, the faint toll of a clock reminded them that time was moving, even if they weren't. Then, without warning, Harry stood. His chair scraped the floor slightly, the sound sharp in the quiet. William looked up, wary. Harry's voice broke. I'm sorry, Will. For all of it. For what I said, what I did, for leaving you to deal with the fallout. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I hurt everyone who mattered to me, including you. William didn't move. Harry swallowed hard, then did something no royal had done in a century. He knelt. Not before the throne, not before a king, but before his brother. The act sent a shock through the room. William's eyes widened, his breath caught. I don't expect forgiveness, Harry said, his voice shaking. I just want a chance to make things right. I'll start wherever you want me to. No titles, no spotlight. Just let me serve again. Let me earn my place back. For a long, unbearable moment, William said nothing. The firelight flickered across his face, illuminating the conflict in his eyes. He had dreamed of this moment, not out of vengeance, but out of justice. He had wanted to see humility in the brother who once mocked the institution he now begged to rejoin. But now that it was here, it didn't feel like triumph. It felt like heartbreak. Get up, William said quietly. Harry hesitated. Please. Get up, William repeated, firmer this time. Harry rose slowly, his eyes glistening. William looked at him, searching for words that didn't come easily. You want to come back? Fine. But not as a prince. As a man. As someone who understands that duty isn't a punishment. It's a privilege. Harry nodded, his throat tight. I understand. Good, William said. Because this won't be easy. The public won't forgive you overnight. Neither will the staff. You'll be scrutinized every step of the way. You'll have to earn their trust, not demand it. I'll do whatever it takes, Harry said again. William's gaze softened, just slightly. We'll see. He turned toward the window, staring out at the gardens. The same gardens where two boys once played tag, where their mother once watched them from the balcony, laughing. For a fleeting moment, he wished she were here. She would have known what to say. She would have known how to bridge this canyon between duty and love. But she wasn't. And now, it was up to them. Harry followed his brother's gaze, his voice trembling. Do you think she'd be proud of us? William didn't answer immediately. Then, softly, he said, I think she'd be sad it took us this long. The words hit harder than any reprimand. Before Harry could respond, there was a soft knock at the door. An aide entered quietly, whispering something to William. William's expression changed. He's here. The aide nodded. Send him in. Harry frowned. Who? But before William could answer, the door opened again, and there stood their father, King Charles. The air in the room shifted instantly. The king's presence carried a weight that years of exile hadn't prepared Harry for. He looked older, yes, but also sharper, every movement deliberate, every glance precise. "Father," Harry said quietly. Charles's gaze swept over him, assessing, unreadable. "So," he said finally, "you've returned." Harry nodded. "I have." Charles stepped closer, his voice calm but heavy with meaning. "You should know something, my boy. The crown doesn't forget, but it does forgive, eventually. Whether you're part of that forgiveness will depend on your actions now." Harry nodded slowly. "I understand." "Good," Charles said. "Then perhaps we can start the process. Your brother and I have discussed a proposal, one that might allow you to contribute again, but under conditions." Harry tensed. "Conditions?" William stepped forward. "We'll discuss them tomorrow. For now, rest. You'll need it." Harry looked between them, his brother, the future king, and his father, the reigning one. He could feel the walls closing in, not in a menacing way, but in a way that told him there was no going back. Whatever came next would define him forever. As he turned to leave the room, he glanced once more at his mother's portrait through the open doorway. Her painted eyes seemed to follow him, calm and knowing. He exhaled. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew this: forgiveness had a price, and William was about to name it. It wasn't planned. There was no royal script, no calculated act of humility for the cameras. There weren't even any cameras to begin with. Yet, the moment Harry dropped to his knees in front of his brother, history seemed to pause. It was a gesture that shattered centuries of royal pride, one that no one in living memory could have imagined witnessing. A prince bowing not to a king, but to his own blood, pleading not for mercy, but for meaning. The fire crackled in the hearth behind him, throwing long, trembling shadows across the walls. Outside, the rain began again, soft at first, then heavier, as if the heavens themselves couldn't decide whether to cleanse or condemn what they were seeing. The silence in the room was deafening. William stood frozen, the weight of his brother's act settling in like a storm cloud. Harry's voice came out low, cracked, barely audible. "I've done everything wrong, well. I said things I can't take back. I turned my pain into a weapon, and I used it against my own family. Against you." His hands were clasped tightly, trembling slightly as he looked down at the polished floor. "But I can't keep living this way. The more I tried to break free from the family, the more I became trapped by what I'd done. I lost who I was. I lost us." William didn't move. His expression was unreadable, torn between anger, disbelief, and a buried kind of grief that had lingered far too long. He wanted to speak, but he didn't trust his voice. He wanted to believe his brother, but years of betrayal had hardened him in ways he never expected. "Harry," he said finally, his tone quiet but sharp, "you can't kneel your way out of this." Harry shook his head. "I'm not trying to. I'm trying to show you that I understand what I've done." He looked up then, his eyes red, raw, desperate. "You said I have to face what I destroyed. I am. Right now." William took a slow step forward. The distance between them, the emotional and physical gap that had once felt like a canyon, began to shrink. For the first time in years, William looked down at his brother not as a rival, but as the boy who once followed him everywhere, whose laughter used to echo through these same corridors. But he also remembered the interviews, the accusations, the way Harry's words had sliced through the family's dignity like knives. The Oprah confession, the memoir, the endless media circus. "Do you even realize," William said slowly, "what those words cost us? What they cost, Father? The institution?" Harry nodded. "I do. And I hate myself for it." William's voice hardened. "You accuse me of being cold. You painted Kate as cruel. You made our grief into a spectacle. And now you think one apology erases that." Harry shook his head quickly. "No, I don't. But it's a start, isn't it? I'm not asking for forgiveness, Will. I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can be better, that I can make amends." William's jaw tightened. "And Megan?" Harry's breath hitched. He hesitated, his silence louder than words. William folded his arms. "She doesn't approve of you being here, does she?" Harry didn't answer immediately. Then, softly, "She doesn't understand what this means. She sees it as weakness. But I see it as the only way forward." The honesty in that admission hit William harder than he expected. He knew his brother loved her. That much was obvious. But to hear him speak of her with such weariness, such resignation, was something else entirely. "She might never forgive me for coming here," Harry continued. "But if I don't try to fix this, if I don't fix us, then what's left of me isn't worth saving. William turned away, his gaze falling on the portrait of Diana hanging above the fireplace. Her face, serene yet piercing, seemed to watch over them. Her boys, her legacy, her unfinished story. For a long moment, neither spoke. The crackle of the fire and the steady rhythm of the rain filled the silence between them. Then William whispered, almost to himself, "She'd be heartbroken, you know." Harry looked up. "Because of what I did." William shook his head. "Because of what we became." Those words cut deep. William finally turned back toward his brother. "Get up, Harry." Harry hesitated. "Will, get up," William said again, firmer. Harry stood slowly, his knees weak, his expression uncertain. William stepped closer until they were face to face. "You say you want to serve again, to make things right. But the monarchy isn't a stage you can re-enter when the spotlight fades. It's a duty. It's sacrifice. It's long days, cold hands, and no thanks. Are you ready for that?" Harry nodded. "Yes." William's eyes narrowed. "Because this time, you'll be treated like any other staff member. No special privileges. No titles. You'll work. You'll listen. You'll rebuild your trust from the ground up. You'll serve people who might despise you, and you won't complain. Can you do that?" Harry's voice was quiet but firm. "I can." William studied him, weighing every syllable. "Then this is your test," he said finally. "I'll speak to Father. But if you fail, if you run again, if you use this as another performance, I'll make sure you never set foot in this palace again." Harry nodded. "Understood." William's voice softened slightly. "I don't hate you, Harry. I never did. But I can't trust you. Not yet." Harry swallowed hard. "Then let me earn it back." The faintest glimmer of something, not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps the shadow of it, crossed William's eyes. "We'll see." The moment hung there between them, fragile, unsteady, sacred. Two brothers standing on the ruins of what used to be love, trying to rebuild something that resembled peace. Then, a knock at the door. A familiar voice, the king's private secretary, spoke through the crack. "Your Majesties, His Majesty requests your presence in the green room." William nodded. "We'll be there." As the footsteps retreated, Harry exhaled, tension slipping from his shoulders. "Do you think he'll forgive me?" William didn't look at him. "Father's not the one you need to convince anymore." Harry frowned. "Then who is?" William turned toward the door, his voice calm but cold. "The world." They walked side by side through the corridor, the silence between them thick but no longer hostile. The palace staff pretended not to stare, but whispers followed them like shadows. "He's really here. Do you think the king will take him back? Does Meghan know?" When they entered the green room, Charles was waiting, standing by a large oak desk, papers neatly stacked, a steaming cup of tea beside him. His posture was regal but weary, his face lined with the weight of years spent balancing love and legacy. "Your Majesty," an aide murmured before quietly exiting the room. Charles gestured for them both to sit. "Well," he said, his voice low, "I see history repeating itself. Two brothers at odds, a father in the middle. I suppose some things never change." Neither of them spoke. Charles looked directly at Harry. "Your brother tells me you're willing to return, to serve. Is that true?" "Yes, sir," Harry said quietly. Charles leaned back, folding his hands. "You understand what that means? No glamour, no headlines, no speaking engagements. You'll work quietly, out of sight, for the crown, not for yourself." "I understand." Charles nodded. "Good. Because your first assignment will not be an easy one." Harry's brow furrowed. "What is it?" Charles glanced at William, then back to Harry. "You'll be serving as an aide under the Royal Community Initiative. No fanfare, no uniform, no title. You'll shadow senior staff, handle logistics, and assist with public outreach. It's the same program junior royals once trained through. You'll start there." Harry nodded. "Thank you, Father." Charles raised an eyebrow. "Don't thank me yet. You're not doing this for me. You're doing it for yourself, for your family, and for her." He nodded toward the portrait of Diana hanging over the mantel. Harry followed his gaze. His mother's painted eyes seemed to glisten in the soft light, as though she approved. "I won't let her down again," Harry said. Charles's expression softened, if only slightly. "Then prove it." William rose, signaling the meeting was over. "He'll start tomorrow." Charles nodded once, dismissing them both with a wave. "See to it." As they stepped out into the hallway, Harry let out a long breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Do you really think this will work?" he asked. William didn't answer right away. "I don't know," he said finally. "But if you're serious, you'll find out soon enough." They stopped by the window overlooking the gardens, the same place where they'd once stood as boys watching fireworks on summer nights. Now, the world outside was gray, the rain softening to mist. Harry stared out. "It feels different being here." "That's because you're not here as a prince," William said quietly. "You're here as a man who has something to prove." Harry turned to look at him. "And if I fail?" William's gaze didn't waver. "Then you'll have knelt for nothing." The words hit hard, not as a threat, but as truth. As Harry walked back down the hall toward his old quarters, he passed by another painting, one of Queen Elizabeth, his grandmother. Her calm, watchful expression seemed to pierce through him. He could almost hear her voice, the one that had once comforted him as a child. "Duty first, dear boy. The rest will follow." He stopped and whispered, "I hope you're right." But somewhere deep inside, a small voice, his own, wondered if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. Because forgiveness, once sought, can't be taken back. And the test William had prepared for him was about to push Harry further than he ever thought he could go. It began not with a ceremony or announcement, but with a whisper. The kind of whisper that travels faster than any royal decree, through corridors, kitchens, and security radios. "Prince Harry's been offered a deal," they said. But this wasn't the kind of deal that came with power or privilege. This one came with humiliation. When William summoned Harry the next morning, the air in the palace was thick with quiet curiosity. Even the footmen avoided eye contact. They could feel it, the tension of two brothers about to rewrite royal history again. Harry arrived early. He'd barely slept the night before. His nerves kept him pacing the small room assigned to him. Not his old quarters, but a modest chamber once reserved for visiting staff. The message was clear. Rank had no place in this new beginning. When he entered William's study, his brother was waiting by the desk, hands folded neatly over a folder of papers. The room smelled faintly of cedar and coffee, a morning ritual Harry remembered well from their army days. Back then, they'd been equals, soldiers, not royals. Now, the distance between them felt both invisible and immeasurable. William didn't look up right away. He let the silence drag, as if measuring Harry's patience. Finally, he said, "Sit." Harry obeyed. William flipped the folder open. "You said you wanted to earn your place back. To serve, not to be served. I intend to hold you to that." "I meant what I said," Harry replied firmly. "Good," William said. "Because this is going to be different. Difficult. And public, though not in the way you're used to." Harry's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" William finally looked up. His blue eyes were cold but steady. "If you want redemption, you'll have to start at the bottom. No titles. No privileges. You'll serve as a junior liaison for the Royal Community Initiative, the same program you mocked when you left. You'll report to staff, not the other way around." Harry blinked. "You're asking me to work for palace employees?" "I'm not asking," William said. "I'm telling you." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Harry leaned forward. "You want me to clean up the mess I made?" William nodded. "Exactly. You'll visit shelters, veterans' homes, hospitals, not as a prince, but as Harry Windsor, volunteer liaison. You'll go where the cameras don't. You'll speak to people you've never met. And you'll listen more than you talk." Harry exhaled slowly. "And if I do this?" William's expression didn't change. "Then maybe, we'll talk about restoring your official duties." The word maybe struck like a knife. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't even forgiveness. It was a door cracked open just wide enough to make him crawl through. Harry nodded. "Fine, I'll do it." William's tone softened, but only slightly. "You'll do it because it's right, not because you expect a reward. If I sense this is about image or redemption in the public eye, it's over." Harry hesitated. "And what about Meghan?" William's jaw tightened. "That's up to her. But if she interferes, if she leaks, complains, or uses your service as leverage for publicity, then everything ends immediately." The room went silent again. Harry's pulse quickened. He understood what his brother was saying without needing more words. The palace had lost its patience for drama. After a moment, Harry nodded. "I'll talk to her." "Do more than talk," William said. "Prove you can stand on your own. This isn't about her. It's about you and the family you abandoned." For a long while, neither spoke. The only sound was the faint ticking of the clock on the mantel. Harry looked at his brother. The future king, calm, composed, but hardened by years of bearing the weight of a fractured family. He realized then that William wasn't punishing him out of cruelty. He was testing him out of love, the only way he knew how. "All right," Harry said finally. "Where do I start?" William closed the folder. "Tomorrow. South London. A veterans' housing charity. They don't know you're coming. You'll work with them quietly for a week. No press, no coverage. Just you and them." Harry nodded again. "Understood." William stood, signaling the end of the meeting.